This meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners is called to order. Will Commissioner, staff, and guests please rise for invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come before you and serve the people of this county. We ask that your wisdom be upon us and that your hand and your peace be on our world today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, I couldn't stop laughing.
For the purposes of attendance, the clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Here.
Connor.
Here.
Geiger.
Here.
Getty. Here. Gibson.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Smelker.
Absent.
Absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Approval of written agenda. At this time, any commissioner or member of the public may ask for an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under items for consideration. Hearing no such request, does any commissioner wish to change the agenda additionally? Hearing no such request and without objection, the agenda is approved as written. Reports from state and county officers. Does any state or county officer or their representative have a report to share with the board?
I think he's shy. This is our newest deputy, and Steve Perkowski. We kind of robbed him from Berry Township. Looking for officers is really, really difficult, so it's almost like a knife fight between police chiefs to go out and get their people to come in and work for us. So he's agreed. We're going to swear him in front of you guys, if you don't mind.
That's great.
Any objection?
No, please do.
Okay. Steve, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution for the State of Michigan, and you'll faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Deputy Sheriff in and for the City of Hastings, County of Berry, and State of Michigan, according to the best of your ability?
I do.
All right.
Thank you, Deputy. Congratulations and welcome to Berry County. We thank you for your service and for your willingness to step into harm's way. It's Prairieville's loss is our gain. So,
Berry Township.
Berry Township, Prairieville too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Limited public comment. This time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Charles Hertzler, Hastings City. I just wanted to come today to tell you that all the I's have been dotted and all the T's have been crossed, and I am running for the 8th District County Commissioner, which should be okay with you guys because I'm not against any of you. We're going to be with you. You know, I'm not taking anybody's seat, just trying for the new one. I want to thank Vivian when she mentioned last week about the Robert's Rule of Order. I ordered that book too so I could learn a little bit about it. I was impressed that you said that you got it. I don't know if you got it because I'm sure you knew it before now, but anyways, that's rabbit trail. But so, yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know that I do plan on running for that seat. I hopefully am going to win that seat. And another thing I'd like to ask is, once upon a time, a couple of members here said that I could do like ride-alongs with them and stuff and kind of like learn what the county commissioners do. And now if that would still be available, I'd like to be able to do that so I could start getting a feel of what, when I win, that I would be doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have any correspondence to share with the board? Consent items, Commissioner Jackson.
I move for approval of item A, approval of February 8th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. Item B, approval of February 15th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Item C, approval to purchase the server infrastructure solution as presented in a quote from Dell Inc. for a total cost of $213,576.24, including hardware and software licensing, with funds to be paid from the data processing fund, and to increase the budget line item E-637-258-980-050 computer capital in the data processing fund by $113,577. Item D, approval of the attached Consumers Energy easement agreement between the county and Consumers Energy, and to authorize the county administrator to sign the agreement and related attachments.
Second.
Motion by Jackson, support by Gibson to approve the items listed under the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker absent. Geiger.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. All right, we have a special guest here today, Steve Curry, Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Counties, here today to give us an update on issues facing counties in Lansing and some of the issues and priorities that his organization is working on.
Well, good
Good morning,
morning,
Steve.
everyone. Good morning. Thanks for having me, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. One of my roles as executive director is I try to get out to about half the county board meetings a year. So there's 83 counties in Michigan. So that's about 43 or so board meetings, which there's only so many second Tuesdays, third Wednesdays. So I'm driving around the state a lot. That was one of the benefits of Zoom, actually. It provided me the opportunity to get a few more counties. But I do have a presentation I want to run through today. Feel free to interrupt me with questions, or if you want to wait till the end, that's fine as well. If we want to go ahead and go to slide 2. This is just a little overview of MAC. We have 16 county commissioners elected by regions, two seats from each of our regions. The commission or the MAC board meets at least 4 times a year, once at each of our conferences, then in June and November. And typically our elections held at our September conference. That's when our elections are always, not always, but most of the time held. Slide 3, that kind of shows you the MAC leadership. Phil Kyers is the current MAC president. He's from Ottawa County. Stan Ponstein's the first vice president. He's from Kent County. And Eileen Kowal is the second vice president, and she is from Oakland County. Next slide, please. What is the purpose of MAC? Obviously, first and foremost, we're known for advocacy. We are the only organization that represents the county commissioners across the state of Michigan. We also do advocacy at the federal level in combination with NACO. Many of you folks have come to our conferences and participate with our organization, so we're thankful for that, because we definitely look at advocacy as a team effort. While we're your voice in Lansing, back home, you guys are the ones speaking to your local legislators about issues that affect county government. We also provide various educational opportunities. I mentioned our 2 conferences a year. We also put on the new county commissioner school in cooperation with MSU Extension after each election year. And we also provide various services through our association. You folks participate with our Workers' Compensation Fund and have been a longtime member of that, so we thank you for that. But we provide other services as well that the intent is to save counties money in the long run. Slide 5 kind of goes over some of our legislative priorities for the rest of this legislative session, of course, which is the rest of this year. We're already almost through February at this point. I'll talk a little bit more about each of these in further slides, so we'll go ahead and go to slide 6. So Open Meetings Act, prior to the Open Meetings Act, there was an ability for county commissioners to participate remotely and vote remotely if a quorum was physically present. During, of course, the pandemic, the legislature allowed for full remote meetings. Obviously, people weren't getting together in person, so Zoom meetings were held, things like that. That elapsed at the end of this December of 2021. And once that happened, an unintended consequence was it wouldn't allow for those that ability prior to allow for voting remotely if a physical quorum was present if the county wanted to allow it. So we're looking to get back to that. So we're working with some other stakeholders, other groups to kind of get back to that level to allow that local option if a county wanted to provide local voting remotely if a quorum was physically present. There is an appetite for that. We're working with legislators to get some bills introduced. So once they are, we'll make sure to inform you on that.
I think we on this board, we have a preference of we like to meet in person. We had a lot of challenges with Zoom, but we are supportive of the local board's right to choose on that issue.
Yeah, you'll find many times when you see us take positions, it's in support of local control and allowing for local decision making. So that's something it would not be mandatory, and we didn't, and a lot of counties didn't allow it. So we're fine with that as well. But if a county would like to do it, we support that. Slide 7, enacting reforms to ensure proper funding of local courts. So back in 2019, the legislature created the Trial Court Funding Commission, which looked at how courts operated and were funded across the state of Michigan. They came out with 7 recommendations back then. Many of those were introduced as bills to change the court functioning model. It included funding mechanisms, how funds are distributed, IT, things like that. Of course, the pandemic hit, those bills didn't really move. One of the most important bills is the funding bill because that does sunset this fall. If that does sunset in October, could cost counties upwards of $200 to $300 million a year annually. So what we're looking to do is extend that sunset one more time so that some of those recommendations from the Trial Court Funding Commission can be looked at, can be debated further without having that come at a cost to counties. So we are working on getting bills introduced to that to simply extend that functionality. Of course, we are still supportive of those other recommendations that the Trial Court Funding Commission recommended. So slide 8. Protecting and improving local and public system for mental health. So there are a couple competing bills in the legislature right now, one in the House and one in the Senate, that kind of alter how community mental health is operated in the state of Michigan. Right now, it's a very locally controlled, locally focused system, and we support that going forward. The two competing packages of bill kind of get away from that. They kind of move it to private for-profit insurers handling that mental health system, behavioral health system, and we are opposed to that. That being said, we are still in conversations with both bill sponsors on the bill to see if we can get to some sort of agreement, but at this point, we are opposed to both packages of bills. Slide 9, creating a fair revenue sharing system for counties. So as many of you know, counties are only get statutory revenue sharing from the state. They don't get-
If I could
Sure.
pause for a second. We have a couple of new commissioners and we have some new folks in the audience. Could you just really briefly explain how counties are funded?
Primarily,
Michigan?
yeah, there's two ways counties are funded: property taxes and state revenue sharing dollars. Those state revenue sharing dollars come from sales tax primarily, some excise tax dollars, things like that, but it's primarily state sales tax that it comes from. Cities, villages, and townships get constitutional revenue sharing and statutory revenue sharing. Constitutional revenue sharing is guaranteed. It can't be appropriated away by the legislature. It's constitutionally guaranteed. Statutory revenue sharing is appropriated each year by the legislature. So each spring, they go through the budget process. That money is appropriated based on, the governor makes the recommendation, which the governor made her recommendation a few weeks ago, and I'll talk about that further in a minute. But those are the two primary funding mechanisms. So each year we go in and advocate for county revenue sharing dollars. The legislature, the governor could appropriate those dollars away 100% if they felt they wanted to. Obviously, that would be a huge issue for county government because we use those dollars to fund local services that our constituents like. So what we are proposing is one of the proposals is kind of putting statutory revenue sharing in a virtual lockbox, the revenue sharing trust fund, which would make it more difficult for the legislature and the governor to appropriate those dollars away. It wouldn't be 100% foolproof like a constitutional revenue sharing would be, but it'd be a little more difficult. So we are talking with legislators right now on doing that. We also are proposing an 8% increase in revenue sharing dollars to make up for lack of inflationary increases over the years since 2015. And there's also a county incentive program, which is kind of a box checking the state requires counties to do that in order to get their revenue sharing dollars. Every county does it. It's just extra paperwork. No one's really tracking it, so we're asking for that to be removed as well. So I'll talk a little bit about where we're at on some of those in a future slide when I talk about the budget recommendation. So slide 10, back in 2013, there was a bill passed that allowed for disabled veterans to get a property tax exemption. We are always opposed to local property tax exemptions at the state level. Not anything against veterans. We, of course, support veterans. This was a cost of about $10 million annually without any way to backfill local units of government. So finally we have legislation introduced that would backfill locals. It would be at no change to the disabled veteran to get that property tax exemption. They would still get that property tax exemption. However, the state would have to reimburse the locals for that loss. Again, when the state takes a vote on something that affects locals, we're going to have a problem
Yeah,
with
and
it.
isn't historically it's the locals are kind of fending for themselves and finding out what this exemption is. They don't really have information when
Yeah.
folks come to them.
And that's just one example. We see, various property tax exemptions. There was one for broadband equipment. There's been other ones for various, little carve-outs here and there, with no real approval from the locals on that. And again, when I talk about local control, we would prefer that if the local unit of government wants to give that exemption, they should be able to do that. That being said, we do have a fix for this. The first time we've had a fix in a few years, and it was introduced by Senator Bumstead from kind of Muskegon area. Senate Bill 783 and 784. We're looking forward to having hearings on those in the next few weeks to kind of get those bills moving. But again, very positive that still allowing for a disabled property tax exemption, yet the local units of government will be reimbursed on it. Slide 11, back at the end of 2021, there was a bill passed that increased the exemption, the personal property tax exemption, another local tax that we benefit from. It doubled it. It went from $80,000 to $160,000. So that would allow small businesses that had personal property tax up to $160,000, basically exempt them from that. Cost locals about $75 million each year without a way to backfill local units of government. We have received commitments from both the House, Senate, and Governor that they are willing to work on getting a fix to backfill that this year, because it does go into effect in 2023. So we're working with both chambers, legislators on what that looks like. We're working with manufacturers, business groups, because we want to make sure it's fair to everybody. So once we get those introduced, we will make sure you guys have those bill numbers. And then, of course, still a topic at the local level is ARP funds. Not only a topic at state, but it's or local level, but the state level, federal level. I was at the NACO conference last week. We're still talking about ARP funds. The final rule's out, allowing more flexibility for locals to use those funds. But what we've done is put a group together with business groups, philanthropy, local units of government, and went to the state and said, hey, state, why don't you take a portion of your funds and allow for matching? So whether it's going to be infrastructure development, broadband, water, sewer, allow for locals to match their way up. So if you're a small township that maybe only got, $100,000, they could match it up with the county, that could match it up with the state, so that these dollars are really transformational and go as far as possible.
Yeah, real quick, we in Berry County are ahead of the game. I think we're one of 11 counties that are have defined a process. And Catherine, do you want to give just a little summary of what our ARPA process is to Steve?
Sure. We reached out to leaders in the community had a task force. They developed an application process using metrics based on the guidance that we had at the time. They scored, they reached out to local units of government, and then they submitted applications. They scored those. They made a recommendation to our board, and last month, January, we awarded our first tranche of ARPA money.
But it is difficult without any kind of state coordination to partner with these local governments. So we're on the same page. Matt.
Yeah, and as you guys develop that, if you could share that with us, because we are kind of
Absolutely.
keeping some best practices at the association, because we're asked from other groups, what our county's doing, and we love to share those success stories with various people. And it's great that you are moving, because 2024 those funds, end of 2024 those funds have to be allocated, and end of 2026 they have to be spent, and that's not that far away if you're looking at some infrastructure projects or some things that take a little more time to develop. So you can kind of see more information on myroadmap.com, the coalition group members, some of the recommendations on there. And you're starting to see some of the supplemental bills move through the legislature right now that reflect the recommendations that we made. So slide 13 kind of talks about some of the successes we had in 2021. Of course, first and foremost was extending county commissioner terms from 2 years to 4 years.
We never thought it would happen, did we?
Me neither. I've been at the association 10 years, and it's something we've worked on for at least that long. We were one of only 5 states to only allow for 2-year county commissioner terms. So we're very excited to see this pass. So when you run for office, if you're planning to run for office in 2024, you will be running for a 4-year county commissioner term seat. So that's good news there. Slide 14. Another victory was 911 funding. So that was another issue that was where there was a sunset involved in some funding for 911 specifically. That was due to sunset. We were able to get that extended to the end of 2027. Some of the changes was an increase from 5% to 6% in the surcharges. But a unique part of this bill, which you don't often see, was that there is a fee rollback process if more revenue is generated than is needed. So that was a little check there to make sure there wasn't too much money being rolled into this 911 fund. But still very important to get 911 funding up to where it needed to be to make sure that, when there are calls, they can find specific locations in buildings and things like that. So. Moving to slide 15, again, talking more about the governor's budget recommendation. So the process, for those that don't know, the governor always makes a recommendation on the budget. Then it'll go through each appropriation committee in each chamber. Then they will kind of get their targets. The conference committee will get together and say, okay, you actually have this much money to spend. Then each chamber kind of gets their targets. They kind of put their budget together. Then all three get back together and kind of negotiate a budget, which usually, hopefully is done by July 1st of each year. So some of the highlights in this budget were $23 million boost in revenue sharing to 10%. So that is 5% would be one-time funding increase for counties, and 5% would be ongoing. So that's pretty important. We've seen some small bumps over the years, 2%. We've seen significant cuts back, if you think 6, 7, 8 years ago, 20% cuts to county revenue sharing dollars. So 5% increase we're pretty happy about. Not the 8% that we'd recommended, but still a move in the right direction. $94 million for roads and bridges, $500 million for water infrastructure. So that would be anything that involves like PFAS, water. Anything that deals with any sort of water, lakes, things like that, high water, things like that. $175 million for judicial case management system. So that kind of looks at going to one system across the state. So there's consistency there when we're looking at the judicial case system. And $15 million for the jail diversion fund, which sheriffs obviously like to see. So slide 16 gets into some of the bills we're working on right now. Binding arbitration expansion, something that we've long opposed. The reason why we oppose the expansion of it is it's a costly process. Third-party arbitrators can oftentimes create long-term liabilities, which we are concerned about. And it increases the unequal treatment among bargaining units. So the bill is now in the Senate. It previously cleared the House, and it is House Bill number 4725. Slide 17, public notices. This is a bill that would change the way public notices are handled. Basically, the reason why we oppose it, because it doesn't do some things we think it should do. There's no cost curbing of public notices, so those oftentimes are very expensive to post in local print. It doesn't reduce unnecessary details of the posting process, not eliminating, but reducing some of the complexities of posting and timing and things like that. And it doesn't help with meeting legal deadlines. So we are working with the bill sponsor on that. That's Senator Vanderwall. He's actually a former county commissioner from Mason County, and he's been very open to it, and we're working with the Press Association as well to make sure they're comfortable with it.
So with this legislation, what's the goal?
The goal is really to kind of fine-tune the process a little more. There's some flexibility there that I think the bill sponsor is trying to fix, that the Press Association brought about, which I think we're okay with that, but we also would like to see some other changes that if we're going to get into this, let's make it comprehensive and not just do one-off bills to fix issues that, if we're going to open up the bill, let's try to fix it all at once. So. Slide 18, those are our policy committees. So everything I spoke about today comes through our committee process. These are all made up of county commissioners. You can see when they meet. If you'd like to be a part of any of our committees, please feel free to fill out an application at micounties.org. We do allow for remote participation in those committees. We did long before the pandemic hit, just because it's tough to get to Lansing. We understand that, and we want to encourage as much participation as possible. We also have a small PAC that we appreciate any participation with. We use this to support the 31 former county commissioners in the legislature. Not an all-time high for us, but still a very consistent high number of former county commissioners moving into the legislature. So if you are able to help us out, we'd love to have any sort of gift you'd like to give us. This is your MAC advocacy team. Dina Bosworth, our Director of Government Affairs. She's been with MAC a long time. She handles our general government, tax policy, environmental issues. Megan Kite-Corian's our Government Affairs Associate. She handles health and human services and judiciary issues. And then Hannah Sweeney's our Government Affairs Assistant, and she kind of coordinates our committees, helps point people in the right direction when they do have questions. Next slide. At conferences, I talked a little bit about our conferences. We do have an upcoming conference the end of March. Many of you folks do attend, and we'd love to see you there. We do have a commitment from the governor to speak at the conference on the second day. We also have a great lineup. Everything is posted online, so you can check out what the breakout sessions are. We have other plenary speakers as well. It'll be Monday through Wednesday, so half-day Monday, full-day Tuesday, half-day Wednesday. And then our annual conference is all the time in the fall, and that rotates around. So that'll be this year in Port Huron. Last year it was up on Mackinac Island. So we try to rotate it around the state each fall. And then finally, those are our MAC communication tools, Facebook, Twitter. We do a podcast, Instagram. Hopefully you're getting our weekly updates. We do a newsletter every other month. Of course, our website's listed there. We try to give you as much information as possible without being overwhelming, so hopefully you're getting all that and find it useful. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
So to our new commissioners, this is really the only association for county commissioners. So they have a lot of tools that can help us all be better at our jobs. And you don't need to be in office a long time to be a part of MAC. So we'll start with Bruce. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Dave?
Nope, good. I'm interested to hear the revisions to the OMA. Do you have a timeline on when some of those bills will be coming out?
No, I don't have an exact timeline. I know they're in discussions right now with legislators on what the comfort level is, because when first discussing it with the legislature, they were a hard no on it. They wanted everyone to meet in person without any local flexibility. They have since softened that in the past, I would say 30 to 60 days, so we're kind of generating more discussion. So if I had to guess, I'd say within the next 30 days.
Okay. I think it's an important step, just because although this board does prefer to meet in person, there are a lot of boards where people are coming from distance, and it would be awesome to be able to allow the flexibility. We get a lot more done when we can coordinate some things over long distance like that. So.
Yeah, we did see a significant jump in public participation during the pandemic because
Exactly.
a lot of people didn't have to drive into their county seat to participate in a board meeting.
Vivian?
I appreciate all you do. I mean, you've helped me with some projects that I've had to work on, so their office is great. I mean, for getting you information that you know you've been looking for. So I appreciate all you do. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ooh,
I have no questions.
Catherine?
With the governor's proposed budget and the increase in revenue sharing, half being an ongoing increase and half being one time, is she proposing restrictions on the
No, it
Designated.
wasn't like it had to go to pension or OPEB or any of that. There were no restrictions put on that from her recommendation. Could we see something from that through the legislature? Possibly. We've always opposed that. We believe that county government, county commissioners are the best stewards of local dollars, so they know what to do with it. We don't need to be told what to do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve, for coming to Berry County.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we have no public hearings. Items for consideration.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of claims in the amount of $140,073.11.
Support, Jackson.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Jackson, for approval of transfers and disbursements. Approval of claims in the amount of $140,073.11. Is there discussion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Connor,
Yes, aye. Excuse me.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smelker absent, Campbell,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye, the item is approved. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. County Administrator's report.
I'm all set, thank you.
Chairperson's report. I'll just keep you all up to speed. We're in the early stages of setting the groundwork for round 2 of ARPA funding, and at the same time getting all of our legal contracts in place, so when we contract with these locals, we can make sure that all of our bases are covered and all of the aspects of the project are being watched over, so we can ensure a good result. So I think at the next COW, I plan to have on the agenda discussion of how we want to go forward with round 2, and then we'll implement it later in the spring. We also, but ARPA is not the only thing we need to be thinking about right now. We still have a county jail that is falling apart. It's a rickety old structure that's way past its prime. I plan on having a discussion amongst the board of what we want to do this year, if we want to go for a millage renewal, or, excuse me, a millage for a new jail. Because the jail's not getting any better. And even though we failed in our last millage attempt, we can learn from our mistakes in the last one and give the taxpayers a facility that they expect from us. So that's just a sneak peek of what's to come. Vice Chair, this report.
Thank you. I attended the Prairieville Township meeting since our last board meeting. They approved their new board rules. They also approved Parks and Rec 5-year plan, and they amended the Articles of Incorporation for the Gull Lake Sewer and Water Authority. Solid Waste Oversight Committee last week, the officers, Chair Frank Fiala, Vice Chair Tom Rook, and Treasurer Patty Rail were all elected to another term. We discussed a budget amendment, and they had to do a little bit more research. They weren't ready to finalize that. The annual report is being prepared for presentation to this board probably in April. Sarah Nelsa is working on an extension for the recycling coordinator contract for approval at the March 11th meeting. And the next household hazardous waste collection is scheduled for May 21st, 2022. Carowell Services, CEO Carla Fales has retired. Her farewell open house was yesterday, and we have not had an advisory board meeting since before the Christmas holidays. We normally don't meet until we're off.
We should do a resolution for her, shouldn't we?
We could, so. One thing I didn't put down, I thought John would comment on it, but he's being absent. We did a walkthrough of the courts and law building at the magistrate's new office, courtroom / together.
Yeah, just can you give the public a little brief on why we had to adjust that space? Basically, you were having trial like at a little desk.
Yeah, the magistrates for that had always met in the magistrate's office.
It's like you could meet in a cubicle.
Yeah, so, but there is a space issue and they needed more offices. So what we did was we made a similar to the magistrate's hearing room on the 3rd floor, but we made it a little bit more entailed so that Frank Hillary can have his office right there too.
Right.
To kind of do dual purpose because the court, it's not always in use, only when needed. So it saves us some room, puts him there as his office, and it's an actual small courtroom, and frees up some more office space because the county is continuing to grow. So we've had our walkthrough last week, and so they'll be in there and make the necessary changes and hopefully move on. We also have changed some client attorney little cubicle windows on the 3rd floor, which they've got all that installed, and they're painting, so we hope to have that wrapped up soon too, but we're not quite ready to get out of the 3rd floor yet. So, but that already did have a hearing room there, so we just changed so that the attorneys and their clients have a little bit more room to meet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your work and Commissioner Smelker's work on these building projects. They take on an extra, basically, committee assignment to evaluate these items and then bring it to the board for recommendation. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, at the Hastings Township meeting, they talked about the MTA conference, they talked about the sewer agreement with Thornapple Manor. They also talked about taxing Harvest Point. At the Transit Board meeting, we've hired 2 new bus drivers since our last meeting.
Can you give us an update? What's the status on that taxing of the county facility? Did the Hastings Township Board take action?
There was a lot of information in the paper.
Yeah.
It made the front page.
You telling me I should read the paper?
County property is tax exempt.
Yeah, it is.
That's the bottom line. And this was item was brought up and it wasn't on their agenda. So actually, Don Haney got whiplash, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He was there, but he didn't know that they were going to be discussing that issue. And he gave them information that county property is not taxable. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the township's going to do, what their plans are.
County property, it's not taxable.
Yeah.
No. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Commissioner Getty.
Thornapple Township is expanding their Duck and Lake Sewer Authority to make upgrades to their system and to serve Peace Church on the corner of M37 and Parmalee. So it's a rapidly growing church, and they have limited on-site septic. So they reached out to Thornapple Township, and along with these upgrades that were necessary, they can work with Peace Church to be able to accommodate that one-time hookup. The Village of Middleville continues work on their wastewater treatment plant upgrades. They have a planned unit development hearing tonight, a rezoning effort, and then they're working on applications for MDOT TAP grant money to help with their trail bridges that need to be replaced. So those two small trail bridges on the Mill Pond and Middleville need to be upgraded and replaced. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. I did attend the Barry Eaton Health Department meeting last Friday. Among other items, we learned of the growing problem of vaping, especially in our youth and our school system. So I was happy to hear that we're working on that and trying to resolve that issue. It has become quite an issue.
What was the percentage of kids that are now vaping? Isn't it like 30% of 11th graders have vaped in the past 30 days?
Yes, it was very high. It was very high. Also, we did move our meeting time to 1 o'clock on the third Friday of each month, and that'll be alternating between us and Eaton County.
Yeah, and sorry to keep interrupting. The reason we did that was to accommodate everybody's schedules. We moved to a Friday, and we had been informed that that worked with Eaton County's committee schedule, but they said because of some fifth Friday quirk, they had to change 4 meeting times. So we said, we're going to change it all to 1 o'clock. And we now meet in Eaton County at the Eaton Township Hall, which is a bigger facility.
And the other thing I did was attended the Public Board of Works meeting this morning.
Great.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Attended the Barry Township meeting. They did express their gratitude and appreciation for the board's consideration of their ARPA funding for the water tower. A lot of enthusiasm going forward there. I did not attend the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. I was in Arizona for that meeting. We have the governance board for EDA and Chamber tomorrow. So, and as a closing note, we want to wish our illustrious leader, Ben, a happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
And we know you may be the youngest member of the board, but we've aged you well the last 2 years
Oh,
especially.
yeah.
So.
Oh, heck yeah.
It's been a
You
fun
see my
couple of years.
first term photos.
So, happy birthday. And I'm not going to ask anybody to sing because I've heard you sing, so we're going to let that go. So
No, please don't sing. You'll be gavelled. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Hello, Chuck Hertzler, City of Hastings. How are we doing today? This time I'd like to say ARPA funds. We know we got round 2 coming up, as you just mentioned and stuff. And I know that the last week when I talked, I said I would like to see it go more towards businesses and people instead of community involvements and stuff. I was just wondering on this next round, 911 got the $2.1 million for a tower. Do they have 800 megahertz equipment? Is that going to be requested out of the next ARPA fund? And we gave Berry Township a water tower. Now, are they going to come back after a water treatment plant? Because I'm assuming you need a water treatment plant when you have an open system water tower. But I'm not sure. These are just questions that, does one lead to another and then nothing really happens for the good of the people or businesses that suffered through the pandemic. The jail. I'm glad to see that you've addressed the jail after I brought that up a week or 2 ago. I still think there's things that we can do as county commissioners and as people controlling the budget and stuff, that we could find money, whether it's to split up the health department, whether it's to tighten up budgets on other people and stuff, instead of putting more financial responsibility on the taxpayers at a time when interest rates and inflation is going crazy. Why don't we just try to tighten up our budget and make some arrangements someplace so we can find money to put towards the jail? So maybe we even have a match. Last time it was like $50 million. Maybe this time we can come up with $25 million out of county money already and only ask for a $25 million millage. I just think that there's the things that the county commissioners, from what I'm learning, is you are to spend the county's money responsibly, and I think that we need to start working harder at that. Because I think that from a lot of the things I see, there's a lot of waste. A lot of areas we could just tighten up the money. But I would like to talk about that more at another time when I can at least get response. But I'd like to bring it out so that the public knows that that's what one of the things I'm going for is concern for the citizens and taxpayers of Berry County. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Larry Bass, Carlton Township. First off, I'd like to thank Commissioner Campbell for getting an update on a health board meeting. We typically don't get that at these meetings, so thank you very much. That's appreciated. I'm going to give you some random thoughts. Most of my thoughts as I get older are random anyway. But continue my goal to offend everybody here at the meeting. I've got some thoughts on the ARPA funds. We've got $6 million coming up that are available, as I understand it. I'm going to suggest, too, that we look at splitting the health department on that. Number one, I'm against any mandates from non-elected officials, and also I believe very strongly the health department should be split. I think we should use a different mechanism next time, this upcoming time, for the ARPA funds, for a couple of reasons. Number one, we used an advisory committee last time. An advisory committee is not held to the Open Meetings Act. There's some individuals that tried to get copies of minutes. They were refused because it's not considered a public body. I hear us talking about openness and engaging the public quite frequently up here at these meetings, and that obviously did not happen last time. Another thing is I thought was a really, I didn't like, frankly, out of 61,783 people in the county. The Zoning and Planning Commission last year made a determination at an expansion or a modification of Bay Point. The commissioners didn't have any problem with shooting that down and deciding to grant that variance or whatever the heck it was. However, when it came to the 6 recommendations from this advisory committee that's not held with the Open Meetings Act, they blithely went right through the committee. I did not hear a lot of discussion. I wasn't here at all the meetings and such, but I really think you have to look at that because, frankly, I have no objection to the recommendations that were enacted. It's a mechanism that I objected to. Secondarily, if we don't change some of the rules as far as how we address the public, next meeting, you're going to start hearing the causalities of the First Punic War. Because we obviously we don't care what the people stand up here and talk about. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I'd like you to think about that because you need to improve your communications. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Angela Regas, and I'm running for State House Representatives in the district, the newly 79th district, which includes in Berry County, Rutland, Thornapple, and Irving. And I have attended several meetings here. I've enjoyed listening to the different information, and I've also met with some of you personally about the challenges that you have faced and the victories that you have also enjoyed in your townships. And I appreciate your service, and I appreciate your willingness to speak with me. And I also appreciate the involvement from the community. And what I have heard more than anything is that the community would like to see the Eaton-Berry County Health Department separate due to cost and just different things that have affected the county. We're talking about mandates, we're talking about unelected bureaucrats, running our lives, and we definitely need to shut that out and protect local control and obviously our freedoms, that we know that the mandates were unjust, unconstitutional, and illegal. And I appreciate, any member of the board and community who has stood up against any of those issues. So thank you. I will give you, if you don't already have my contact information, I have open contact policy. Anyone can call me at any time or email me to discuss these things because I am learning and I'm very eager to learn about the issues that are facing Berry County. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Hi, Bethany Matthews from Carrollton Township. I would like to third on the health department, split of the health department. Again, we've had problems with Colette Scrimsher and as citizens regarding mandates, and I just believe that Eaton County does not parallel Berry County anymore. I think that their values and their goals and agendas are much more targeted towards the Lansing area. It's all about Eaton County, and I just think that it has put a bad mark on Berry County. I think that they have not represented us well, and giving all the protests or you heard from the parents about their disappointment of the handling of COVID issues in the schools, and you will continue to, I believe, as long as we're connected with Eaton County. I'm just not even sure how to do this, but I would like to see it be a ballot initiative. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Hi, Pat Jameson, Bowens Mills. I'd like to go over imminent danger right now, because back when that Colette Scrimger issued the imminent danger, cases were 122 new cases, probable 706, positivity rate of 14.9. Today, as of 2:15 from Barry Eaton's own website, new cases 103, probable 2,298, positivity rate 16.9. It's nice to see everybody. First time up here since then, I don't see a single mask. Where's the danger? Secondly, as far as ARPA goes, I'm trying to understand how this was, the committee was even formed. From what my understanding was Commissioner Geiger and Commissioner Getty were the mastermind behind the plan. And that being said, we have a big issue in Yankee Springs Township. We have out there in Yankee Springs Meadow, the trailer park out there, they have arsenic in the water. This is an ongoing thing. It's been going on for a while. Haven't heard nothing from our commissioners. So why wasn't Yankee Springs Township even contacted for the ARPA money until late June, early July? If their own commissioner formed this committee, but yet trails, this $100,000 study are two things she's passionate about. I have nothing wrong with trails. I have nothing wrong with even the study, but you put your own passion for things that you have, that you like, that you want to do, ahead of your own people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Adam Michael, local business owner. Gentleman is here talking from the county's organization. I was a part of the Michigan Township Association, which was mentioned that some discussions were happening. They had their latest conference. Again, those organizations are great for resources, but just like the attorney discussion last week, right? We can't rely on these different groups and organizations to make our decisions, and so I want to make sure that that's something that you do, like you said, new members or whatever that's here, recognize that it's up to you all to know what's going on. It's for you all to know the laws and the regulations that you're voting on and that are being dispersed, or the funds, or like he said, like how these groups get formed, because these groups that was formed are all players that are benefiting in some capacity, or political players like Greg Moore from the guy from Consumers Energy that's on that board. He's nothing but a lobbyist for Lansing for Consumers Energy, and you guys have him on your committee. I mean, that's just mind blowing. It shows that there's a lack of understanding of who these people are, what their motivations or what their actual, because people on the surface are going to say, what you want to hear or what they need to tell you so that you believe them. But there's underlying things that are happening. When we see all of these controls from outside of our communities coming in, when we do have members of the community coming here every week telling you guys the same things, questioning the same things, and there's no response and there's no actual action on some of those things, it's really disgusting. It really is. And that's why, again, we're hoping to see some of these new people step up for this election here this fall, because there obviously needs to be some new ideas and some new brains on this commission. It just has to happen. It's mind-blowing. I've never been to something so consistently and seen, well, no, never mind, I've been in my township, but it's taken 7 years in my township for some of those things to start happening. But they're happening, so that's why I know I'm going to keep coming, and I'm going to keep hopefully getting more and more people to keep coming and speaking. Like the last gentleman, he's trying to hold back his anger from you guys because he's been coming and watching. He hasn't spoken up all that much because you guys make them afraid and angered because you don't respond, you don't communicate, you don't do anything. You show that you're separate, that you're not an extension of the people in your communities, that you are politicians and they're doing things for political power, political means. Please understand that and make a change.
Thank you for your comments. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we've reached the end of our agenda. If there's no objection, the board will now adjourn. The board is adjourned.